Hello, Mike. Can you hear me?
This meeting to order. The affidavit of posting was posted accurately. Supervisor Kelling is excused, Supervisor Smisek and Supervisor Garath and Supervisor Bailey are all here. If we'd rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would entertain, I gotta silence mine. I'd entertain a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
That makes Supervisor Smisek and Garath. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Discussion items, we'll start out with the Human Services Children and Families Division quarterly report. We have Coral.
So if we can start with economic support.
Okay.
Coral had an emergency, so she's running a little bit late.
We will certainly be flexible. We'll look forward to Renee then. Hi, Renee.
Good afternoon. Hello, I'm Renee Zagel, Economic Support Division Manager. I just wanted to share the initiatives that we're currently working on in the Economic Support Division. We have two that we're working on. The first one is the hybrid work from home model. We wanted to see if we could get a model of staff working from home to retain knowledgeable staff from working from home while ensuring the excellent quality of service to our county residents. We did this because we are a part of a consortium, a 5-county consortium, and the other consortium, their economic support staff were already working from home. So it was kind of, we thought we should probably try this, see what we can do, so we aren't losing staff when it's remote. Some of them are, like 3-4 days remote, that if you're a Campbellsport resident, you could go to Fond du Lac and work from home if you found that that was a favorable work environment for you. So we started this back in March. It's been great. I mean, we've had our hiccups. On track for most things, or everything that on track or completed, I should say. Our first goal was to develop and implement the work from home policies and procedures. And this included getting technology items as well, laptops, headsets that staff could work from home. Got that. That was all completed. The next was to modify our office space. So we have downsized our footprint inside our building, and we're doing a shared office space. So we have staff that come in 3 days. They'll come in, half the staff will be in for 3 days, and then the next 3 days, the next staff will come in. So they're working using that shared office space, and so far, no complaints. Evaluation of the new model. We haven't started this. This will be coming. We just started working from home August 8th. So it's still fairly new. Staff have been most have been very favorable. Technology, we were able to get 2 laptops and equipment that they were able to make sure that our call center worked and all that stuff. So we'd send people home for like a week at a time and test it to make sure that we weren't sending everybody home at one time. And it works great. And another goal that we have is implementing the process and auditing and productivity of staff, and that we have been doing. They turn in work every day, what they've completed every day, and along with a weekly tracker of the work that's been completed. So there is no question if somebody's working from home, if they're not being productive, because we're able to measure that. The second initiative that we are working on is to evaluate and implement birth to 3 childcare program. This is being funded by ARPA funds, and it is for us, it's starting October 1st, and it'll run through the end of June of 2024. Families that have a child in the birth to 3 program may be eligible for childcare without any sort of a income limit or work component. So what we needed to do was reach out to birth to 3 and make that initial connection with them to see how we're going to get this to work. We're going to get referrals from birth to 3, and then the child care workers will be writing the authorization, but it's not a subsidy program at all. So first goal was to evaluate the potential client base, and that was reaching out to the service provider or service coordinator for birth to 3, which has been done in August. We just completed training for this, and now we will be waiting for the referrals to come starting October. We do have funding for the possibility of up to 42 children for the county. Funding will come directly from the state, and the only ask we'll be writing the authorization. The parent will be calling and saying, I would like to have my child attend here. We'll be writing the authorization, and the county gets reimbursed $160 for each authorization, each child that we write that authorization for. And those authorizations are good for 12 months. So it'd be a great program for parents that maybe are over income for it, right? For childcare, but they would like to maybe almost a respite for the children. Any questions?
Just one, how does this dovetail with the WIC program?
The WIC?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
There's no
Okay.
correlation with the WIC program.
Okay.
It's all.
All right. Anything else?
And if I could just add, I think one of the things specifically with the economic support's first goal that we thought was really important is because the call center is 100%, on a call center, right? It's all electronic. We don't have residents, coming to the facility to have their meetings. They might drop off paperwork and that sort of thing, but it's all done through a call center. And so and they have probably some of the highest levels of ability to track their metrics and their work productivity than any probably government program I've ever actually seen. And so one of the reasons for this particular initiative is because it is a benefit for people to be able to work from home, but we're also looking at it as a retention strategy. But we want to make sure that their productivity stays at the high level of productivity that we're seeing in the office. And so I thought that this would be a really great goal, especially to be able to bring to the committee on a quarterly basis to be able to show to you that where their productivity is at. And if for whatever reason it wasn't reaching the levels that we wanted, to be able to ask those hard questions, if this is a way of doing work in which we should continue.
Yeah, thank you very much, Renee. Are we ready for Coral? Okay, the next agenda item would be Human Services, Children and Families Division Quarterly Report. Coral, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Coral Klein, the Division Manager for Children and Families. I'm excited to talk about my first two initiatives in this process with you this evening. These two initiatives are things that Julie and I have been talking about for quite some time implementing in my division, and this really is a just great opportunity to kick off these two particular pieces of work. The first one is improving the quality and consistency of data management and reporting. This one is really around streamlining the data for the work that we do in my division. As you may remember, most of my programs are required by the state and are state regulated. There's a state information system that we use. We input a lot of case data and person data and everything you can probably think of into our database, which is called EBISACWIS, and then we can pull out multiple reports on any sort of outcome that we would like. However, it is not a very user-friendly process. It doesn't streamline particular pieces of data that we believe are best able to make decisions around staffing or worker time and those types of things. So we would like to pull that together in a more meaningful way. When we are able to do that, for us, it is really around analyzing the data trends over time, then to influence staffing patterns, service needs, allocation of resources, and really also the other piece of this is making sure that we're adhering to the state's best service practices and that we're meeting all the outcomes that we need to meet in the various programs in the division. Additionally, this data is used to inform grant writing. There are opportunities we're of course mostly state funded, but there are opportunities to secure other funding to do different types of programs. And of course, I need data to support the funding that I want to make changes or to do additional programs within my division. The intent here then is to review these trends on program volume, look at state standards on program outcomes, and then of course be looking at these staffing patterns in terms of as an example, we had a supervisor leave our unit earlier this year and gave us an opportunity to look at the best use of that position within our division. And I anticipate additional folks heading to retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. So we'll have some opportunity to look at the best use of their position. And with this data, I'll be able to determine how to best use the position or reallocate it or et cetera. That's the first one. My second initiative is improving the quality of family support services. One of the things that we do in my division is we have a family support unit, and that unit basically supports the families that are served within the Child Protective Services program. So that would include supervised family interaction or supervised visits, parent coaching and mentoring, home management, and it was really hands-on in the field working with families to be able to meet the needs of their kids. We have used several types of service models over time, but we want to take a look at what are the most current emerging practices and also the ones that are going to make the best outcomes for our families. Our families have a lot of complex needs. They have a lot of therapeutic and clinical needs that of course are served by other parts of our department, but also what can our workers do to be able to change the reasons why they're receiving services from CPS. So as you can see, there's an implementation or review and analyze family support service models, and the due date for this particular goal is May of 2023. I want to let you know right now we're in the process of reviewing and analyzing some of those service models. I have a supervisor who works directly on review, her team. She supervises the team that is going to implement this, and she is working on reviewing these with myself and the leadership team. And we're hoping to be able to continue to do that through early next year. I think a really important part of this is that, the data shows that parenting support earlier with families and kids who are receiving child protective services cases leads to quicker reunification and or a reduction in kids coming out of the home at all. So that's why this is really important that we're taking the time to look at our practices in this area. And of course, the other why this is important is the piece around kids going into out-of-home care. We want to reduce those out-of-home care costs. I know this group reviews that budget and those costs. So that is, of course, one of the drivers if kids don't have to go out of home at all. And again, just reviewing these trends over time and making sure that what we're implementing and what we're doing is resulting in the outcomes that we hope it's going to be resulting in, which is why we're looking specifically at evidence-based practices for this particular population, because the average parenting support program may not work with families with the complex needs that our division serves.
Any questions?
Questions?
Coral? Just one about where are you finding and researching some of these support models, the family support models that you're looking at?
Sure. So there are several clearinghouses that will show the varying levels of evidence-based practices. Some are, I'm not going to remember all of the language, but some of them are like emerging. They're just getting started. They're just starting to do research on them. They're just running through a clinical trial or a model. And some of them have been well proven over time. So we're looking at those different clearinghouses to help us determine which ones would make the most sense. Look at 3 to 5 of them, get the details and see how they would best meet our needs.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Coral. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. So we'll move to, and then we have the drug endangered children. MOU. Julie,
Yeah, so
will
this is
talk
just
about
a little bit of an FYI. I wanted to bring this to the committee's attention. There is no backup documentation, primarily because it's 24 pages, and it is in very, very last draft edition. But I wanted to bring this to your attention because we are going to be having a formal signing of this MOU with all of our law enforcement jurisdictions. And the Children and Families Division, and specifically Coral Klein, have been working on this with every single law enforcement partner in Washington County for the last 2 years. And so we're very excited to see this come to fruition. But essentially, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of what this is, and we will send out to you the date of that signing, and hope that any and all of you can attend on that day. And then when it's fully executed, we will provide you with the final copy. But essentially, this MOU is an agreement to work cooperatively to protect children who have been or are at risk of abuse and neglect due to the parent or caregiver substance use, distribution or manufacturing of substances through early intervention, coordinated investigation, assessment of children's safety, as well as providing supportive services to children and their families. The protocol specifically will reflects an agreement regarding the guidelines of a multidisciplinary team that we'll use to coordinate our community's response to drug endangered children. So essentially, this protocol and this MOU outlines in 24 pages how when law enforcement responds to a drug-involved incident and there are children present at the scene, how we will handle that so that we can assure the safety of those children in that moment. and then the follow-up care for them. And so it's a very exciting endeavor. It's been a labor of love, I believe, to get all of the law enforcement jurisdictions on the same page with the Human Services Department is a huge collaboration and partnership, and we will be formally signing this at the end of the month. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that was occurring.
Great. Thank you. Moving on to the action items, we have the resolution to commit funding to issue a request for a proposal, so an RFP, to award a contract to a transitional sober living facility in Washington County. Julie's going to tell us about this as well.
I am. Yep. I'm hoping that my computer will let me pull something.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if I cannot bring it up, it is in your packet, and I wanted to walk through with you first before I go into.
It's okay.
Oh, it is up.
Yeah, it tried.
It tried to do it. No. Okay. Well, this is in your packet, so if you can go to the attachment that is in this information about the opioid settlement payments. I just want to walk you through what this means so that you have a good understanding of the funding before we start discussing what the request is. So as you know, we have settled some of the lawsuits against some of the distributors in the opioid settlement. And right now, the state of Wisconsin has separated out into two categories. On the left-hand side of your of the sheet, you will see a column that is highlighted in blue, and it's called the Janssen Scheduled LG Payment. So essentially, that is Johnson & Johnson for sort of layman's terms, and that is our payment from Johnson & Johnson starting in 2022 through 2031. So we have 11 years of payments, and you can see there what those payments will be. The state has separated those payments out from the other distributors because Johnson & Johnson has an A+ rating as far as their belief that they won't go bankrupt. So those payments will start coming to Washington County in the increments that you see in that column from 2022 to 2031. And we will get a total of $836,029. So if you scroll over then to the distributor payment next to it, you'll see the first payment at $155,383 in 2022, and then payments going all the way through 2038. So that is essentially 18 years of payments from the bulk of the other distributors. Right now, that is the total amount that Washington County is projected to receive based on what has been settled right now. There is conversations happening at the state level on whether or not counties want to securitize. And securitization essentially means that you're going to get the money up front, it's guaranteed, but you'll get it at a reduced amount because you'll have investors who are going to back those dollars. And so one of the reasons is, there's a worry that if we wait 18 years to get all the dollars that are to come out to Washington County, they could go bankrupt and then we get nothing. So at this time, there's conversations happening with Wisconsin Counties Association around securitization. We have given a first indicator that we are interested, but if we are going to officially securitize, it would come to the county board for final approval. But you can see there then what that amount will be if you slide over to the right-hand column of dollars, and you can see that the end result with securitization is about 2.2 million versus 2.6 million. And we would get the dollars likely mostly all up front by 2023. So that is the complexity of the opioid settlement dollars. What is before you is a resolution request to commit the dollars to a specific initiative, and that initiative is for sober living transitional housing in Washington County. Last year, we completed a needs assessment in anticipation of the opioid settlement dollars coming to Washington County. That is in your packet as well. It was presented to that Health and Human Services Committee and that county board last year. The number one area in the community that we're seeing a need for is sober living, specifically for women. Washington County is not the expert, nor do we want to be the expert in running a facility of this nature. So we would like to use the dollars that we have to issue an RFP to a third-party organization who is an expert at running this type of facility and interested in setting this up in Washington County. So the request in front of you today is a resolution to commit the dollars so that we may issue an RFP so that we can get an understanding of who in the community is experienced and able and what the cost will be to start up and continue to run a facility of this nature. Right now, because we only have received $155,000, and as you can see, it's scheduled to be received anywhere between 11 and 18 years, we either would be doing a general fund transfer or we would be issuing debt that we would pay back with these dollars. That would be a separate formal resolution to the county board on either a general fund transfer or an issuance of debt after we get an understanding of who is available and who's a good provider to provide this service. So really the request from you today is permission and commitment for this money so that we may issue this RFP. And then later on, we can decide what's the best form of providing the dollars upfront and paying them back with the opioid settlement dollars.
Any questions on
Need a motion, a second.
Julie's, right?
Discussion.
Okay. First and a second to open for discussion to, she just described so eloquently. So moved. So moved. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Any questions about what Julie presented?
You just voted on it.
Okay, I'm confused because I thought that's why.
You take a motion,
Okay.
a second to open discussion, and then you vote when discussion is completed.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Sorry. All right. That's passed. So the next agenda item is the Future of the Samaritan presentation. Julie is on again.
Sure, and I don't know, did you want to just have me answer any questions? Because this does have to go to county board and either way too, for the purpose of answering questions for you.
I think it was a smart decision to have somebody that's well versed in it do it.
It's just a comment.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Good.
So you are up next for the Future of Samaritan
Okay, so
presentation.
there is a report in front of you, and I have Matt Furno here, who is now our campus administrator for the Samaritan facility. It has many hats that Matt wears, so we're appreciative of him being here today. But essentially, this report really just outlines for you what has been happening with the decision of the Future of the Samaritan. So as you recall, we had a task force that convened from February 1st of 2021 to April 14th of 2021. And that task force brought forth a report to the Human Services Committee and the County Board. And a resolution was passed that we should remain in the business with a preference for a public-private partnership. That resolution, a copy of that is on the second page of this report. Then detailed for this committee is a list of the efforts that we have made based on that directive that was given to us to pursue a public-private partnership. We pursued a partnership with Cedar Communities that in the end, they did make the decision that they did not want to pursue a continued partnership. We have engaged an architectural firm so that we have some understanding of what the design of a replacement facility would look like and the cost. We applied for a state ARPA grant called the Neighborhood Investment Grant. that would have awarded us $12 million to the cost of building a new facility. That did not come to fruition. We were not awarded that grant. Most recently, we've been in conversations with Ozaukee County around a partnership with their Lasada Senior Living Facility. We have made a formal offer to Ozaukee County, and they have countered that offer, and we are in current negotiations and discussions with them around a partnership for Ozaukee County and Washington County. We also then engage AG Architect again to get a really good understanding if we just did the remodeling of the facility to fix the things that were dire need today to essentially keep us being able to operate in the facility that we're in today. There is a addendum to this packet. There is an attachment that provides the breakout of those costs. It is about $10 million as an initial projected cost. And then the last thing that we have been pursuing is a private sale for somebody to take over the operations of the Samaritan. Listed then after that for you is our current financial status. And I think that's one of the things that it's important for this committee and the county board to really truly understand is the financial status that we are in today, that we have seen really become an area of crisis over the last 2 years. If you had the opportunity to read the task force report, with our partnership with Whitfleet, they did project that Samaritan would need up to $500,000 of tax levy over the next 5 years to operate. And what we're seeing today is that has come to fruition right now. And in fact, the tax levy dollars will far exceed $500,000. We're seeing the culmination of a crisis of staffing that's occurring throughout the country, as well as a crisis in nursing home care and the reimbursement that we receive, and then the requirements that a facility has around COVID outbreaks and when you can have admissions and when you cannot have admissions. We implemented an incentive package for the staff last fall in efforts to maintain them as many staff as we could, knowing that it's a tough job to have to begin with, and it's an even tougher job when you don't know what the future of your employment is going to be. So we have implemented that incentive package, which essentially for direct care staff is giving them $6 additional an hour. If they work overtime, it's $9 additional for their overtime hour. What we're seeing in the market is it's going to be really hard to claw that back. If we were to move into a new facility or we were to remodel our facility, because the market is just starting to reach that level. So we likely would have to maintain some level of pay like that incentive that we're offering today. In fact, we've been having a struggle with staffing in the last several weeks that we've had to offer an additional pickup pay incentive, which gives even additional dollars on top of that, because we need to maintain staffing levels for the care and safety of our residents. We've also, part of, as I said, the crisis that we've sort of reached is also around our census. We are a 131 skilled facility. We are budgeted at 75. We've only been able to maintain anywhere between 58 and 62 residents at any given time because of staffing and because of admission protocols during COVID outbreaks. There is a cash balance. There's about 3 sheets for you around the cash balance of where the Samaritan is today, and you can get an understanding of sort of where we're at. If you recall, or you may have heard this in the past, that the RCAC has always really offset any of the loss of the skilled nursing facility, which is why that's been a really great partnership for us to have. But we're starting to see that even though the RCAC does make money, it's starting to also lose money, and it's not covering the costs of the Samaritan to make us tax levy neutral like it has in the past. And finally, for the purpose of this, this is essentially the options that the committee and the board has before them. It just talks a little bit about the directive and the work that we've done. And it gives this committee 4 options to move forward and to make a decision of the future of the Samaritan. One is to pursue a public-private partnership or a public-public partnership, and we would like to do that in concert with one another because time is of the essence, and we have lost time in some of the other other partnerships that we've pursued. The second option is to build a new facility. It's estimated today that will be between $30 and $40 million to build. And we would need to commit a yearly tax levy to the operations of a continued facility. To do that, the county board would need to pass a new resolution, and we would need a 3/4 of a vote at some point to issue a debt. The third option is to remodel the existing facility. As you can see, it would cost at about $10 million, although AG Architect did indicate there were areas of the building that they did not review, so they can't guarantee it would just be that amount, but to fix the large items and the areas that we know are of biggest concern. Again, that is a debt issuance, and we would need a resolution to be able to issue that debt. And we would need 3/4 vote of the county board. And finally, there is the option to close the facility. There certainly are going to be costs with closing the facility. There are costs with current debt that we have out there, including the cost of, providing service to residents until we can move them to another place, which includes paying staff to stay on with us. And then, of course, there will be a cost to raise the facility. Now it's showing. So at this point, the staff that has been working on this does recommend that we continue with option 1 because based on our work, we feel that is will have the best outcome for the future of the Samaritan. But obviously that is up for this committee and for this county board. And so we'll take any questions that you might have regarding this issue.
I need a motion and a second.
Yep,
Don't
yep.
vote. You don't have to vote.
Yep. Okay. So I would entertain a motion and a second
So
to
moved.
discuss. Smacic and second by Supervisor Bailey. All right.
Jeff has his hand up on that.
Oh, okay. Chairman Schleif.
Thank you. I have a question. The material showed that, prior material showed that it was nearly $5 million to replace the boilers, the chillers, various mechanical equipment just to make the facility workable. Is that included in the 10 million we're talking about for renovation? Thank you.
Any other
I
question?
have a question.
Yes.
If we partner with LaSada to send our existing residents and staff there, is this an ongoing partnership for future citizens of Washington County, just not the ones that are already at the Samaritan?
That is part of the negotiation, yes.
Okay. And then if we built a new facility, would we sell the existing facility and use that money towards the new building and cost?
I do.
Okay, if we partner with LaSada, for example, we need to get into the full negotiations to determine exactly what the contract and what the agreement would be. Chances are they would not be interested in the skilled nursing portion. We have 131 beds. That is possible to be sellable to an other entity. Secondly, we do have a rather new RCAC, and that too would be marketable. And at this time, LaSada they run a very successful RCAC. And I don't know whether or not they would be interested with our RCAC, which is a 24 apartment unit. And today we have 21 residents residing there. So either they would be interested to continue that, or they would not, and that would be sellable. We still have an outstanding debt that we would like to pay that down if we're able to sell the 131 beds license, and if we could sell the RCAC of 24 units. We do have a license of 31 CBRF. Chances are, with the Lasada deal, they currently do not have a license and would probably want that license, and that would be probably part of the negotiations.
So if you were going to sell the existing Samaritan, it wouldn't just be the big building, you'd have to look at both buildings.
Yeah, and I think it's important to separate out like the physical building also versus the license. What's really marketable or a commodity is the beds, right? So we're licensed for 131 beds. We could sell those 131 licensed beds. And we could also sell the building, but somebody could also just buy the beds and put them somewhere else.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so then I have another question. If we partner with Lasada, it would be a merge. It wouldn't be like Lasada was over here and Samaritan was over here. It would just be like a merge together.
With our negotiations, what we would do is surrender the entire program and the operation to Ozaukee County. We would also put additional dollars to encourage the taking of our staff, and they certainly need additional staff there. And so what we're trying to do is come up with a win-win solution that Washington County will have the ability to send their residents over to Ozaukee County, Lasada. Approximately half of the physical location of Washington County is closer to Lasada than Samaritan. So it's advantageous to a lot of our residents, advantageous to a lot of our employees. And so at this time, Lasada is operating probably similar to us, much less than 50% occupancy in their skilled area, and would be able to take a lot of our residents, maybe not all of them. And we are looking at the possibility of this not being a static arrangement, but rather a dynamic one where that we would continue that relationship where Ozaukee County would have the ability and the willingness and contractually admit Washington County residents along with Ozaukee County residents.
So they wouldn't have to, if they, you know what I mean? So if we had too many, they wouldn't be able to take some of our residents.
Well, that statement is true. If we would go with the $30 to $40 million project, our full intention is to downsize. So even at the new construction, we would no longer be able to take the same number of residents that we can take today. Our census today for the skilled nursing is only 51.
And what would the new facility be? What would the capacity of the new facility be
If we build,
if you build?
originally we looked at 48 beds.
Do you have more, Marietta?
I guess if we build new, what would be like the raise in the tax levy or what for the people, to hear that?
It's really hard to say. I think if you look at the report that was put together for you today, trying to figure that whole component out today, the previous estimate, as Julie mentioned, was $500,000. But if you look at the cash balance sheet in that packet of material, it's basically the only spreadsheet, at least full-page spreadsheet. I mean, that's 12. You're talking a 12-month running average. The cash loss from Samaritan compared to the gain from the fields, roughly $2.8 million, a little bit more than that. So, I mean, we're already blowing the $500,000 mark way out of the water. Now, I think Matt could probably attest to the fact that we can get that much more under control. But that's without even contemplating the staffing numbers that you see on the previous page, where we allocated $2.3 million in additional staffing incentives. Now that's 18 months, so a year of that is about 1.8 million. So now if you add the 2.8 and the 1. I'll even go lower and say 1.5. You add those two together, now you're talking $4.3 million. Now, can we bring that down again? Probably. The staffing number, probably not, but a remodel project is a $10 million venture. If you put that on a 10-year note, it's almost all going to be covered by the levy. It's probably $1.1 to 1.25 million per year in principal and interest. So now you add those three together, you're at 5.5 million. If you're to do build new, it's probably a $35 to $40 million venture. The principal and interest payment on that is 2.5 million. Medicaid might cover some of that. But that total cost is 6.8 million. How much would the levy have to cover? A lot, more than way over half. I think, and at the end of the day, it's why the task force suggested a public-private partnership, and it's why the county board at the time did the same thing. Because the problem with the numbers that we're looking at today is we have no idea how bad they're gonna get moving forward. As was referenced by Julie in her commentary, the staffing problem is I know everybody who's so close to it wants to say, oh, the building's getting old and people are uncertain of the future. It certainly doesn't help us, but it's not hurting us. Ozaukee County's got the same problem. Cedar Campus has the same problem. Freighter and Aurora have the same problem. Rocky Knoll and Sheboygan County has the same problem. Nurses are fleeing the industry because the work is really hard, and in many cases they're being mandated to get the vaccination. It's just a compounding number of issues. You can't point to one thing. So I think staffing is going to only get more difficult. Medicaid reimbursement is necessarily going to get worse. We've been hearing for how many years that Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security are going to collapse. I mean, it's coming. So I think it's so hard to speculate how many millions you would have to subsidize if you built new. But if you just do quick math back of the napkin, I mean, you're talking 5 million plus. And that's just for the things that we've talked about today, assuming everything else holds steady, which is probably not realistic.
It just sounds to me like partnering with Lasada is like getting out of the business.
Well, I can tell you that, first of all, there were over 100 county nursing homes less than 20 years ago. Today, there's about 33. In most cases, they flat out closed. Iowa County just flat out closed, within the last 18 months. Racine County sold. I'm not sure if there's ever been another county that's partnered with another county the way that we're proposing, because there's definitely gonna be some hurdles to doing this. But to have some option for our residents to go to, my impression from both task force and the county board in the past was that's the goal. This would certainly achieve that goal, albeit won't be as convenient, no doubt. But yeah, I mean, there aren't any great options, we know that, including remodeling. Remodeling, the $10 million number for remodeling is
That's way too low.
not a good option either.
So I have a question on nursing homes in general, private nursing homes. With their licensing that they buy, are they required to have accept a certain percentage of their licenses in Medicaid people? So the ones that do that really are doing that, because I know there are some private ones that do accept a certain number of Medicaid that's out of the goodness of their hearts.
We need to
No,
stay,
historically,
we gotta stay on topic. We're not talking about other private.
Well, I'm just wondering, as far as like thinking about where these people would go.
answer.
Probably
Yeah.
better than I can.
Okay, historically, nursing homes in general, for-profit and not-for-profit, would augment their admissions and their census by taking Title 19. It was never the preference, but rather, if I have a 100-bed nursing home and I have 75 private, rather than leave those 25 empty, it would be better to take Title 19. The state of Wisconsin has been atrocious when it comes to reimbursement for Title 19. For many years, we were in the bottom 5 out of 50 states. Today, we are in the bottom 10 of 50 states. And that's where the problem is. Had we been paying, and if we started paying comparable to private, you wouldn't have this dilemma.
Right.
And I think it's important to know that our budget pattern is not based on 100% T19. I mean, we still also, especially in our 90-day, 60 to 90-day rehab, don't take that Title 19. If we took 100% straight Title 19, these numbers would be worse.
Okay.
Questions, good dialogue. Anything else?
Well, I just want to say that I want to be sure our most vulnerable residents are taken care of. Yes, LaSada is a great option. I have talked to a lot of constituents and people out of my district, and they all want to keep a nursing facility in West Bend.
That's what I'm hearing too from people, is they prefer to keep a facility in the county, where it's convenient for them to watch over their loved one. Because when you have somebody in the nursing home, you really have to have a presence, especially if they're not capable of speaking up for themselves. You need to have a family presence there, visible, to make sure that they're well taken care of.
Matt, can you go back to your comment about the fact that Samaritan's in the kind of central northern part of Washington County, and that LaSada being in Ozaukee County, that you made some comment about, is it about half of our current residents actually live closer to Ozaukee, or is it just that?
Geographically speaking.
Okay.
Yes.
And I looked at Google from the Samaritan. It was 10 miles to the Cedar campus. It's 16 miles from the Samaritan to the LaSada campus. I just kind of looked at that too.
It's definitely a tough issue because people do feel that, and I personally also feel that we should take care of our own. However, the question then becomes, at what price are people willing to accept doing that?
Any other questions or comments or?
That's mainly my concern too is, we can build this new facility and I wouldn't mind keeping it in Washington County too until people see the price tag. Then is everybody gonna love it and want it? That's my fear. So we go ahead and do this and then get griped at because we have to raise taxes and all that other stuff.
I think it's a no-win, basically.
It's not.
No matter which way you go.
Well, if there aren't any other questions or discussion, seeing that we do have some options in front of us, I would entertain a motion and
We already have a motion in a second.
oh, all right, well then let's vote on the, now I'm getting it, okay. Let's vote on the Washington County Health and Human Services Committee to choose option 1, which is to pursue a public-private partnership or a public-public partnership, which would continue negotiations with Osaki County LaSada Senior Living and to pursue a partnership to sell Samaritan campus to a private entity. Both of the options require significant one-time costs. All those in favor of option 1? Say aye.
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 Okay, opposed?
And this is basically making a recommendation to the full county board.
Correct.
This isn't final.
Yes, right.
I oppose.
I oppose.
Okay. And the ayes?
Jeff also.
Yeah, he did too, yes. You got them all?
Yep.
All right.
Jeff doesn't count as a vote though.
No.
Oh,
Understood.
all right. That should take care of that item then. Thank you for the discussion. Our next meeting date is October 26th at 4 o'clock. Let's discuss November and December meetings. So our normal date would fall on Wednesday, November 23rd, which is right before Thanksgiving. And I'm proposing that we would meet on November 30th. We could probably do the final quarterly reports at that meeting. And does that sound workable for staff too, Julie? And potentially not meet in December.
Oh, I'm gone on November 30th, but
Yeah,
Okay,
that works for
I'm out
me.
of the country.
okay. Well, that will be a problem. But that will be just fine. All right, does that work well?
Yeah.
November 30th? All right.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, so.
Okay. All right, November 30th it is. This meeting is adjourned.